Okay, so I'll start off with a nice, easy, and broad question, and anyone can can answer this if you feel like it. Managing resources and project efficiency with BIM. How does that improve the sustainability of a project? Who wants to take this one?
Actually, yeah. Actually, the link between the sustainability, which is supposed to enhance the source efficiency. Yes, indeed, for sure, because of I'll just give you a small example. The cut and fill balancing, it's, let's say that before the BIM, what we can do. So before the BIM, so we can open thousands of drawings, we can calculate the cut and fills and how we can optimize that, how we can calculate this kind of the cuts, how we can merge it with the fields, how we can make it balancing between both of them. But now, what about the BIM? From the moment the BIM technology has been implemented, so the cut and fill and calculations can be calculated easily. We can have all the quantities comes from the Revit, and then we can comparing between each other, and then we can put the balance between both of them. At least at the end, the balancing for cut and fills, it leads to reduce the waste in the sites. And from the moment you're reducing the waste, so it comes again to reduce the transportation, just to have this materials to transfer from this site and to another site. So this optimization, so it helps, and the BIM supports that.
Mm. So calculating of material resource efficiency
yes,
during
for sure,
construction.
Indeed,
yeah. A nice, very specific example to start with. What about in the design stage, I guess, to take it back to the beginning?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to add on what my colleague just said, and we were discussing it just a while ago, is like the efficiency of the model and how sustainable it is, because it has to start from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Because if you reach at the end where all these information are not put properly, the contractor will reach to a stage where he's going to throw the model and start from the beginning. So all the sustainability that we were looking at to reduce resources and program, and it's going to be like, not sustainable, and it's going to be just a waste of time. Mm-hmm. So it has to start from the beginning. The process of the BIM has to start from the beginning in a sustainable way to continue and to reach the most efficient results that we are looking for.
Mm. So what is the reason for the contractor having to start again? Is it that the contractor needs to be brought on board earlier in the stage? Or is there an issue with the handover of the model to the contractor?
Let's go.
It's interesting to discuss about BIM, because you have to understand what's a BIM. It's a platform. It's a platform that gathers all the information for the lifetime of the project and helps the designers, the contractor, the owners to optimize the design. Now, a lot of times we're designing buildings and sustainability, we think sustainability just by the end of the design, yes, or by the end of the contractor. Yeah. But in reality, sustainability is for the lifespan of the building. And that's why the platform as a BIM and as integrated design, we must put such information at the early stages of the BIM, let's say, journey, which will dictate as part of the design what the client and the FM people wants. And that will be very useful also for the contractors and for the designers to know what information has to attach to the BIM. Otherwise, it's getting very complicated. It gets very big even to do anything with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think that the government actually plays a key role. Government departments and agencies in sustainable design, driven by BIM methodology. You can have the methodology, you can have the software, you can have the technology, even the people can be trained. But if this is not a conscious decision made at the very beginning of the project, you don't actually take full potential out of it. All the potential of BIM for sustainable design and for optimization of the design, if it's not enabled by either the client or the government, it's not going to be a decision that most likely companies will do. The industry is such a combination of different stakeholders. They all have different priorities, and it's very difficult for everyone to be on board on the same goal without considering their own needs. So sustainable design needs to be part of the early set goals for the project.
Do you think clients have a proper understanding of what BIM can offer in terms of sustainability, in terms of life cycle costing and embodied carbon reduction?
Yes, I do. I do think that the clients don't know the full potential that it can offer. I also think that the industry is a bit reluctant to implement new technologies. We are dealing with an industry that is very old-fashioned in many ways. So although the technology is available, the methodology is not fully enforced. So, and I don't think that it's fully understood. And collaboration in this is key. We have had all the panels, and collaboration has been one of the main topics in all of them. If we do not collaborate with each other, it is not going to, most likely won't work out to the full extent of the potential that it has.
Yeah, I believe the process has to change. Like the process itself has to be sustainable between client, consultant, and contractor. As like I think the first panel they said that it's like now attacking. It has to turn into collaboration, and because otherwise the BIM process won't be successful. It's not related only to the consultant or the contractor. We cannot work in isolation or attacking each other. It has to start from maybe the client to put the goals, what he wants from his BIM model at the end, facility management, operation, or whatever. And then it will start from the consultant and continue onto the contractor to be delivered at the end to his FM team. So it has to involve all the stakeholders in the process of building the project in order to be successful.
That's why it's really important in definition of the sustainable construction. It's really important to pulling out all these data together in the early stage, the construction data and the manufacturing data, the operation data, and all this data can be pooling together to maximize the benefits of the interacting between each stakeholders in the beginning, just to achieve the project intent. Not just to separate the stages, okay, this is design stage, this is the construction stage, and then in operation. No, all of them, it's supposed to be one single loop from the beginning, just to reach the sustainable construction.
Okay, so for the benefit of kind of educating people a bit on the sustainability benefits of BIM, what are they, aside from the efficiency, when you're looking at life cycle costing, embodied carbon, how can we use BIM to inform design decisions more effectively? Does anyone want to take that one?
I have been involved recently in a big project that required life cycle assessment and embodied carbon, embedded carbon as part of the design development. And as in every project, starting with 3 options, and these options will progress at one point. In that situation, it was used like an accounting mechanism. But it's very difficult to do all of that because, first of all, the libraries of the BIM have to be set up correctly. Yeah. Then all your suppliers must have sufficient information to optimize, not to optimize, to provide what actually is needed. And then working with the contractor to understand how the contractor operations will influence the energy consumed during the construction. That's one part. The other part is the modeling part, which you can extract and import back to the BIM model your actual design and change the design. You can optimize with BIM, but BIM is not the solution. It's a tool. That's why you must know how to set up correctly the BIM model from the beginning in order to enable at different stages to add the information that actually is needed. Otherwise, you may end up at very late design stages to have a model which actually, when you're trying to change it with different software, you cannot do it very fast and very efficient, or you don't have all the information to do it. So it's good to have it, you can do it, but it needs a lot of preparation for very early design stages, and everybody must be aware of what the inputs are as part of the BIM.
So you have to clearly define what you're going to use the BIM model for.
The strategy.
At the early stages.
Of course.
So that it's developed accordingly.
Yeah,
and you can use it as a useful tool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I can see it used for large clients when they have an overall vision of the project. When the small clients, they don't want to expand strategies as fast as possible because they're thinking more about let's finish the project, let's put it in the market. But the strategy of BIM is very, very important. That's what I said. The owner has to be involved at very early stages. The contractor has to be involved in early stages. The QS is everyone, just to define the strategy of what's going in the model and what will be required to go outside of the model.
I'll take a pun on the word sustainability. So in the last 7 years of our experience with BIM as a contractor, we've gone through 5 different models. So one where the designer first designs and then the model is forgotten. One's where one of the main contractors has the BIM model and then it's forgotten. One where the designer is made as a baby and then it's handed over to a project manager. And we are doing 2 projects like this, and one is handed over next to the contractor, and the contractor has to hand it over to the facility management. So the sustainability of the whole, let's say, chain of handling the model over still is not finalized in a business model. But to add one example, recently we are doing, let's say, a $500 million contract. Somebody is doing a $500 million contract in a country where they are using BIM, and they have the structure finished by, let's say, March, and in 6 months where the interior finishes have come, and we are from a finishes contractor. So they have onboarded us maybe 3 months in advance so that we can work with them to solve the issues, so that when we go into construction phase, we will be able to, let's say, finish it on time. So that's the last model which we are facing. But sustainability still has to be defined by the client, because he doesn't want to put in that money for the total cost of ownership. And I think that's where I think some of the senior members here in the first session said, somebody at the top has to take that decision. And once that's done, then I think it goes down the chain.
Yeah, in any case, there is very important also to not forget that as architects, we have a social responsibility as well. So sustainable design impacts future generations. We are in 2018, we have large population growth, and whatever we build, there's not that much space, so we need to make it as efficient, as the quality needs to be improved, and we need to consider the impact that this has, not only for the environment, the social impact, and the economic impact that the buildings that we may have. So, needs to be prioritized as well, in my opinion, and it's not taking that much into consideration right now, whereas cost efficiency might be something that, is more of a priority.
So if lifecycle, if cost is a priority, do you see many clients looking at lifecycle costing, or is there still a bit of a gap in the market in terms of clients understanding what that can mean for them over the life cycle of the building?
Actually, the life cost cycle for an asset, it's from the client itself. It's the decision when he's taken in the beginning. Okay, I would like to implement the sustainability. I don't want to implement the sustainability. Actually, there is not long term side. But if he looks deeply to what's the benefits to sustainability, it can form in the material itself. So he can use, okay, I would like to use this kind of material because it costs X. So what about if it costs 2X in the time beings, and the long-term life cycle on the 30 years, what you already spent on now, you can have a double because you already optimized the energy.
Exactly, so 90% of the building energy consumption is during facility management, is during operation. Yeah. So if you can actually design it better, build it more efficiently, it will improve. So those costs will be reduced, for sure.
Yeah. I will add on this one, actually, it's the end user. Yes, maybe we designed the best ever sustainable building and it is operated properly, but there is the end user, how to use the building. I think there is a part of educating the end user how to use the building, because all the sustainable measures that we have implemented, they're not used properly, where it makes the building not efficient actually, or used properly. So there is a part for the end user, which I hope, I don't know if BIM can also tackle this one, in order to educate the end users in how to use the building and the spaces.
I think for the operation and maintenance team, definitely for the FM team, having the BIM model and understanding exactly what was designed, what was built, how it should be maintained, and then continuing to collect data during the operation of the building and effectively maintaining that building, I think is definitely something that BIM can support with. So in terms of the early stakeholders collaboration, we've already touched on it. And I know that everyone here, I think, agrees that early stakeholder collaboration is very important. How does that impact on sustainability? I mean, like we said, you can't really design sustainably unless everyone is on board, everyone understands what the end goal is. But is there anything, I mean, maybe from a contractor's perspective,
Yes.
what are the benefits of coming on board at the very early stage?
As I said in the beginning, just to engage all the stakeholders from the early stage, it gives the opportunity to interact between all the disciplines. So if I engage the MEBs or the suppliers from early stage, they can be like my advisors. They can advise me. Okay, this kind of materials, this kind of system. It can be a key just to reduce the energy later on, or to optimize the energy in the operation maintenance phase. So the collaboration in the beginning, it's not just to guarantee 100%. There's no contradictions between the disciplines. No, it's a matter of advices from the specialist, from his point of view. Because so he can advise me, okay, take these solutions, it will be much more better. I can integrate these solutions with my design, and I can collaborate between each other. Is this solution will support my design intent or not? So this kind of collaboration in the beginning, it's really important, just to guarantee the long life cycle for an asset. It will be closed circle.
And you mentioned earlier, when we were discussing before, about value engineering.
Yes, about value engineering. It's from a point of view of contracting. It's the sustainability. It's not just how the energy consumption can be. No, we can use it in a lot of applications, like the value engineering, as I said. So as a contractor, from the moment the projects and one certain milestone, they need to be valid engineering, they really forget about the design intent. So all the materials has been reduced, everything, just they are looking to the cost itself. But what about if we can use this sustainability in this value engineering? So I can choose the materials based on it will interact with my design intent or not, it will achieve it or not. And I can simulate it, and I can have results, and I can compare these results between each other. And then I can just come up to the optimum solution.
There are 2 points I would like to make on this. If you look at our panel now, and I don't think there's any developers here or own the asset. So that itself is an indication of where is the importance of that particular BIM or the total cost of ownership, which we are talking about coming in. So what happens, I think, in a business model, and I'll come back to business modeling, which is more important in the industry, since we are at an inflection point. The contractor is squeezed, the consultant is squeezed, and we do not know what is the reason because of the total cost. So what happens, the contractor just builds something for the developer, and then maybe his electricity charges, his waste management charges, these all increase, and because he's not going to pay for it at the end of the day. So he's not worried about that point of the sustainability. So we have buildings where the electricity charges is maybe unusually high, because all he says is he can put a cheaper product in there and he's gone. His AC costs are unusually high. So unless the industry itself, along with the developers or the guys who are financing it, understands, or maybe these guys who are financing private equity funds or building government regulations, as somebody mentioned,
exactly,
they
legislation.
insist that has to be a running cost of a building, cannot be more than such. I think as we professionals do all our hard work, but that's not going to count at the end of the day.
I think we're touching on issues here that were really mentioned earlier in terms of why is construction not benefiting the way manufacturing has grown and developed over the past 200 years, say, since the Industrial Revolution. And I think we all know it's to do with the cycle, the shortness, the production cycle, and we're on a very long production cycle and so on. How do we actually tackle all that? But it comes down to that of, in sustainability we talk about life cycle and so on and get around. It's that iterative learning process, and That to me is the hard problem of sustainability and digitization and so on, is how we apply. We know how that works in manufacturing, but we keep coming back to this thing that, somebody wants the lowest first cost. Somebody wants to value engineering this. It's not meeting my, and all these nice ideas and fancy programs we have. I think some of those things that are being expressed here are.
I mean, it's okay at least in these countries, but in other countries where they take prime, let's say, agricultural land, which is prime medium, and then plop a building on top of it, and then they talk about sustainability, no water bodies. It's I think, till the owners, like government and the men who develop are held responsible for it, I think it's going to be difficult to. I mean, the technology is there, but I think the let's say the social will or the political will is needed for sustainability.
The intent is lacking.
We have to understand what the term sustainability in BIM is. Sustainability is something, we're developing something for the future. So we're developing something that will not be assessed during the end of the construction. Probably will be assessed after 50, 60 years. And how BIM has been developed, it started like parametric modeling. And parametric modeling actually started in the US Navy for optimizing the design to very small components to fit in submarines. This is completely different words, but in some ways they have very common. One, you're developing something as part of the BIM that has to be optimized, when sustainability has to look into the future. And that's what I'm saying, at very early stage, we have to be like visionaries and see what the buildings have to do. We're focusing on energy and water, which is good. We're saving the environment, but also we have to focus also what is the internal environmental conditions. And I have been in buildings that have been designed, and during the facilities management procedures, things are not as the designers designed, because people at the FM never understand what was the base of design. Now, if the base of design was attached as part of a library in the BIM with some components, and the FM people could touch that and say, okay, this one, we can, for example, close the dampers for humidity during the summer because we don't have sufficient cooling production, but don't do it for long because then your fresh air requirements will not be sufficient for the people within the building. Now, if this information that is base of design, and actually designers know what are designing, is transferred to the FM, is transferred to the owner, and that's the full cycle of sustainability and BIM. But these states, I don't believe we can understand it unless we build buildings and we operate them for a long time. So as I can see, we're in a pathway right now, trying to develop BIM, which we do for both projects, but we have not taken all the benefits of BIM to see them in actually a sustainable environment in buildings.
But isn't that why we have BIM? So BIM, if we model it, then we can check how much power is going to be wasted over 5 years and over 6 years and over 10 years. But the developer is not interested in anymore because somebody's paid his money and he's gone off, and the government doesn't know what it's doing in most of the governments in that particular case. So I'm saying sustainability has to be, I mean, BIM helps sustainability, but sustainability has to be driven by government and social needs is my...
Well, you said the business model, maybe.
Yes.
I like to throw in maybe a crazy idea here, which is thinking of construction as a service. So instead of, okay, it's a product and you build it and then you dump it and then you move on to the next project, you're actually, maybe we're looking at something like design, build, operate. That you operate, you offer it, so that in that way you get this repetitive cycle going, and you know you're responsible. If you build something that's going to be difficult to maintain or really expensive to maintain, it's going to hit your bottom line as well. So maybe that's, to me, that kind of thing is the only answer in the long term. It may take a long time for clients to get used to the idea and so on, but to me, some suppliers are starting to look that way. I went to a sustainability conference a few years ago, and some of you will know Interface Flooring. They make carpet tiles, and so an American firm. And they introduced the idea of that they would rent their carpet tiles. And that meant, because they would then always do the recycling, because those, and they would undertake to make sure that you have a good floor finish. And maybe the time will come when the whole of construction is like that. The main contractor is managing the building throughout its life cycle, including the operation. And then the subcontractors, if you are supplying door hardware, you're responsible for that hardware. You undertake to maintain it, to dispose of it if it needs to be disposed of, and so on. You see that with computers. People tend to rent computers, and the disposal of them, which is hazardous, can be handled by the people who know how to do it.
But wouldn't you agree that there should be policies in place to enable that, to enforce that, actually to facilitate that? It's very difficult that this would be, you know, decisions made individually without a bigger force driving for that.
I think the main issue for what we are discussing just right now, to have the full life cycle, so design and build and operate under one single firm. Actually, I have been discussed this during a couple of months back in the UK. So I was speaking with one client regarding this topic. So I would like to make one firm. It's managing the building from cradle to grave. So that's how I'm going to observe and preserve the data, transferring from each single stage to different stage. But the reply from him, I don't want that. It's because of just I would like to be several firms to guarantee every single firm have cross-checking for the other firm. So it's actually it's a mindset we need to change. It's not that easy.
It's not easy, no.
Yeah, it's not that easy. Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of resistance here. The clients here will have a lot of resistance.
And including recyclability, since we're talking about sustainability. So there was two funny experiences in lighter vein without any comment. So we were said, it's a sustainable building, so you have to buy these gypsum boards from America. So it was for a job in the Middle East. So for us it was like when gypsum is available close by, why do you buy this from America in a certain sense? And then the other one is about the recyclability of the material, which I think is also not, as I said, overall maybe not specific to GCC, but in and around the regions, what is it costing amount of waste which is generated to do that? Why shouldn't the building by the government be said that, hey, you sort out your waste in your building? And this is the process, this is not allowed, the building is not permitted till it is 0 carbon or maybe 10 carbon, and it should take in so much electricity. Electricity and energy costs are going to go so high. So BIM, though it helps, I still strongly feel the technology is there, but still you need political and social will, care for sustainability. I mean, BIM can help, but people should want to be sustainable, want the nature to be sustainable. That's how I view it. So the technology helps, yeah.
So just to add one bit on, as we're talking about how we can use BIM, you're talking about you know, the life cycle of actual projects, this, that, and the other. We're working on quite a few projects at the moment, data centers, with main contractors, and the way those contracts are set up is an EPC contract. So the contractor has to deliver a product. Within that, a certain efficiency is defined. So you've got your energy efficiencies that are defined, maybe not with water and waste, but if you use BIM, as we are doing on these particular data centers work at the moment, we have incorporated that into a modular design process. So when you look at structure, we're looking at polycore planks, precast hollow core planks. That comes delivered to site in precast lengths. So in terms of your wastage, everything is then done at site. So actual products to site, it's specific to the site. You don't have all that wastage going away from afterwards. That's also followed through with the MEP side of things. So you've got all your chilled water modules, all your containment systems, all things like this are being brought to site as modules, skid-based pumps, pressurization units, buffer vests, all things come as a modular arrangement. They come, it's plug and play, like a big Meccano set. So in terms of wastage and material movement, it's massively reduced. So it might not be quite to the levels we wish to get to, but there are small steps that are being done, and people critical to that are contractors. You have to get contractors on board who are willing, through a design and build process, to take a Revit model from a MEP consultancy, structural, architectural firms, and develop that all the way through to shop drawing stage, and use those drawings to bring modules to site, which they can build to. So it might not be quite perfect yet, but there are a lot of examples out there where clients do commission and then operate these sites where they push as far as they can for speed. Quicker it is, the more efficiencies and cost savings you achieve, because you don't have all your prelims in place, things like this. So there are models out there that do work. It might not be quite to the perfect levels we want to get to, and that will come, but there are examples out there that do work. So there are benefits.
I had an interesting discussion with one of the panel members from the first panel, and so he was saying that then we need to, this model has to, let's say, elevate, as we are just discussing brainstorming ideas, where the PMC has to take the role and the responsibility of bringing all this together, where we said the BIM model starts from sustainability till the end, and then all talk to the PMC. So that will again come back to the business model concept. So the PMC becomes more technically oriented rather than, and then hire small contractors to ensure that sustainability product is then developed and given to them, rather than without any heartburn on anybody, where they have no responsibility right now other than, it's always contractor's responsibility or the designer's responsibility. So the PMC has to take in that responsibility and bring in the specialists there.
And that works on a design and build or an EPC type contract, because we work for the contractor. It is our responsibility, otherwise,
Otherwise it's always the contractor to blame, or a wrong architect's design.
One team.
It all goes back to liability, and this is where each one of us is pushing to the other side. That, okay, the consultant's liability stopped there, and then it's the contractor liability. However, we have to change our thinking about the whole process, and it has to be the integrated design process. Otherwise, I don't believe it will work.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
The topic of BIM and construction is very interesting. Because, it's very interesting, I will explain, because recently I had a contractor with very small site, a very complicated building, with some waste management, regulatory requirements attached on site. And actually what he has achieved is something unique. He has achieved 85% diversion from landfill on waste on site. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because in the way to have everything prefabricated, all the cutting was done where it was supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. So recycling was really fast. They didn't actually do any recycle on site. Yeah. The recycle was very small, and that's why the factor was, the percentage was really high. But that also, you can see a benefit for construction or sustainability of construction. If everything is ready, you're saving a lot of time, you don't have lost time on site, you don't have a lot of waste of site, and you're minimizing the trips of trucks from the site and the landfill. So there's a lot of benefit there if it's prefabricated, if everything is managed correctly from an early stage.
Replying back, sorry.
So just one key that is quality. Because you're actually doing this work in a factory condition, not on site, 4 or 5 meters up, somebody trying to physically, torque some bolts or whatever on a flange. It's actually factory manufactured. You've got the quality on site. You go, you witness it on site, you sign it off, and then you move forward. So it's the quality is also there.
And it depends the level of BIM you want. Yeah. That contractor, you want it to be 350, 400. So he knew exactly where everything will be fitted. Okay. But that's helped him a lot to know that what he's going to take on site will fit between other components, will have no waste. Very, very useful.
Yeah, replying back on that, just so the sustainability definition should conclude the direct and indirect ways, which is most of the people just focus on the direct way. So the sustainability, it must be just in energy consumption. But replying back on your point, how many people just know that it's the off-site prefabrication can save a lot of wastage in the site? The labor productivity, how many manpower just used to have it on the site just to erect this kind of job? If I did it pre-manufacturing, or if I did it the off-site prefabrication, it will help just to optimize this kind of process or not, or just they are focusing on the cost of the material itself or the cost of the overhead. But the construction, the sustainability definition, it should conclude just the two definitions, the direct and the indirect way, just to achieve the context of sustainability.
Mm. And the logistical impacts as well that you touched on. Most people just think about the direct impacts of sustainability, like you said, just the on-site waste, on-site operations, but the logistical impacts, transportation, emissions, that's massively reduced as well. So yeah, multiple benefits. So that's a lot of discussion around sustainability. A bit back to BIM in design. Using BIM to design net zero energy buildings. I know ASGC have a little bit of experience.
Yeah, actually, I'm from contracting companies, so but just I would like to speak about the zero net energy buildings. We are handling one of the projects now, which is the sustainability in the pavilion. So this is the benefits from this pavilion. It's exactly just to achieve the lowest net zero energy green buildings. But just I would like to discuss about the probabilities and the options the BIM can give to us. So 10 years back, if I would like just to run a building energy simulation for a building, it was very hard. But now, from the moment just you put the all metadata inside, which is we were talking about, the data is really important in the BIM. So as long as you are feeding all the elements inside with the metadata, so you can use this data and you can run the energy analysis. And even with multiple softwares, even if with Autodesk, they facilitate this kind of tools. So you can just run a simulation, and then you can comparing between these proposals and these proposals. You can compare between these materials. That you can trying to exchange this material with this material. So it's giving you a lot of options. What will going to happen if I'm going to use this kind of MAB system? If this is the optimum way or not? If I'm going to change to different MAB systems, is it really helpful in reducing the energy or not? So it's the zero net energy buildings now. It's much more easier than before, and you can have a lot of platforms which just initiating this kind of process. But as I said in the beginning, it's a matter of mindset. We need to change the total mindset to absorb this kind of ideas. Is it really helpful? Is it really it will be beneficial for the long term along the life cycle of an asset or not?
Yeah, I think the instantaneous modeling, though, is a massive step that has been taken. Like you said, I mean, the models that you do typically for compliance, they take several days. They're not instantaneous. If you're doing design changes, particularly at the early stage of the design, you want to know what impact the orientation, the massing. These can now be done instantaneously and on a day-to-day basis.
There are other things also that we need to consider, such as software interoperability. So you could model in certain software, but simulation or energy analysis software and the interoperability with software such as Revit also needs to be considered. Training of staff and how to incorporate that, and the knowledge also for simulation software, which are not usually very user-friendly. So how to work out on those aspects also will impact the early design stages, to be able to fast-track that for construction as well.
That's a very good discussion, actually. And I have an advice for the BIM software suppliers. As you're progressing the model, it becomes in gigabytes of information. There must be an easy option, just to press a button and go to earlier versions with the same latest design without having all this information. Because exchanging between BIM and other software, the information gets tricky. And if I want to use BIM to save 3 days of work, but it will take me 5 days of work to make it more relaxed as information to enter it in another software, it doesn't make any sense. Maybe in the future it's better to take some CAD drawing and update the latest BIM model or the basis energy model. So BIM has to be in some ways more relaxed if somebody wanted, and there's still design phases to be done.
Yeah, more flexible.
More flexible, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's always a problem for an MEP engineer. So the architect decides that he doesn't want a shaft over here, he wants to move it over here. Exactly. Obviously, the whole MEP design then changes your plant rooms, your handling units, your chillers, your transformers, whatever else it may be. And in BIM, it can be quite a challenge. So the correct implementation of when BIM is used is paramount for an MEP engineer, because if you change something quite large later on, the amount of change of moving a wall, not to be rude to it, it's obviously fairly straightforward, but for an MEP consultant, it can be quite quite massive.
As I said, it comes back to all of us taking collective responsibility. So coming back to business modeling here for me, because it's a problem still, because nobody wants to take the joint responsibility. It is always somebody else's, they move it somewhere else. So unless we all as professionals take joint responsibility for delivering a good sustainable product at a good cost to the client and tell the client, hey client, that's the cost, you need to pay it, you need to pay the design cost, you need to pay the sustainability cost. I think it'll always go back, we'll always be compromising on that.
But sometimes they accept, and you go through all the design, and it's an initiative from the client to implement all these sustainable solutions. But when it comes to site and they have to pay it, it will be just deleted.
But BIM will help us at least even in cost modeling, and that's one more question I want. So on the panelists here, we have designers, we have contractors, but we don't have asset owners, and we also don't have quantity surveyors or business modelers.
Even when you prove to them, we worked on a project where the client initiative, he wanted to actually implement PV panels, and we proved to him there is no payback period, everything, and they insisted, and we achieved LEED Platinum on the building, and when they wanted to implement it on site, 20 million dirham, it was cancelled. So it took us all the effort and the sustainable measures and everything.
Social will and government regulation. So
yeah, exactly. As we were saying
there
before.
should be something above this to enforce it.
Replying back just for your point regarding the zero net energy buildings, the MEB is playing a big role of that. So the contractor, the MEB contractor, they should have expand their awareness about the sustainability regarding these points, because it's not just the materials I need to change. It's the MEB systems. It's really playing a big part of that, and they must have the mindset just to accept these kind of ideas. Which kind of system I can use to optimize the energy of the buildings? Which kind of components I must use to reduce this kind of energy? So they must to change their mindset. It's not just I'll finish my work and then I put it back to the main contractor and then let's keep on. No, it's not like that. It's not like that anymore. So they need to change their mindset.
Yeah, using the software to help in the design process.
Yes.
And to prevent oversizing of systems as well, which is
but to ensure that happens, especially on, for instance, an NG0 type building, consideration needs to be, if we are working in BIM, sometimes it does take a little bit longer to design it. If you're going to be making sure that all the information is embedded in there, and especially if you can then give that model back to the contractor afterwards, you might take a little bit more time in the design period, but it'll massively help the contractor during his construction period. So overall, it will help, but sometimes that's quite often forgotten, that you do need a little bit more time to make sure that you give something to the contractor that will work.
Definitely. I think we could carry on talking for a while, but I've been told we only have 5 minutes left. So if there's any questions from the audience. Oh yeah, straight up.
My name is Bora Aksu. I am BIM manager in Damak Properties. I just want to look at the subject from the client perspective. I want to split these requirements as a concept and detailed design. Some colleagues already mentioned sustainability has to start from the beginning, but some information it's not possible to come from the concept stage. But if we divide the two pieces, can we give some example what kind of requirements should be in the concept stage for architectural and MAP, and what kind of information we have to provide the consultant on the detailed design stage? Another question for the Dubai municipality. I hope there are some managers from Dubai municipality, because I checked some regulation for sustainability. I couldn't find enough circulation. I just find the one circular 207 from the DM, but just related about area and how many floors we have to require BIM. They are thinking to create some regulation for sustainability? Thanks.
So I think the first question in terms of the requirements at the concept stage, that needs to come from the client. So as an architect, what would you like from the client?
I believe sustainability, it's in the design process. It's not about that some information will go in the concept and some in the detailed design. It is like, how you start thinking about the project from the beginning. It's not like, just adding a wind tower somewhere in the design and it's sustainable. I think our grandparents, they created the wind tower because this is what they have. Yes, the concept works, but I think in 2018 we have to come up with things that will tackle the environment now and how we're living and the way we are living. So it needs to start from the first ideas and the approach to the design as sustainability. And yes, the details will develop, but the idea should be from the first beginning of the concept. It should be from, it is the initiation of the concept has to be sustainable. We have to think in a way that we cannot turn our back to the environment and our social life. So it has to be embedded in our thinking and approach to architecture.
Yes, I think from a consultant's perspective, it's the intent that we need at the beginning. So it's the intent of the client that they do want a sustainable building and they do want to consider the life cycle cost, the embodied carbon, the health of the building. So if you have that intent, then you can work with the consultants to develop the strategy. And it will develop throughout the design stage. You don't get all of the details at the concept. But having that intent and driving it forward from the client side is really important. For your second question on the Dubai municipality, was it a question around green building regulations or BIM regulations? I missed it. Sustainability. So there are currently Dubai green building regulations.
If we think about the full BIM, even there is no enough regulation. Just I find out only one circular 207 and very limited 1.5 pages. I don't know there are anyone from DM. I called the DCCA and I communicated with them. There is no any regulation from DCCA also. Yeah, we need some regulation from the governmental side. They can lead to everyone. This is my idea.
Is there anyone from Dubai municipality here who can help? Okay. Were there any other questions? Okay, well, I think that's it then. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you to all the panelists.
Thank you.
For the interesting discussion. Thank you.